What is up, everybody, and welcome to Grinderslive for the NBA. We are doing NBA tonight because there's only a couple of baseball games, so we're going to push the NBA back to its normal slot and talk to you about some of that. Now, we got a mediocre slate here. It's medium size, not that much. So we're going to talk about all kinds of things, guys. We appreciate you tuning in. If you got any questions, drop them in chat. We will get to them at some point in the show, probably later on, but get the questions out there because we definitely need some interaction here. It's kind of a slow day here. It doesn't feel the same without two sports going off, and so you got that. I'm also going to need you guys to drop your best bets in the chat. We need to keep track of that, and we'll talk about last week here later on in the show. We'll do all that. So, but without further ado, I need to introduce the two guys who are on the show with me. Same as last week. While Beer is on vacation, we have, as always, Notorious is in the house. Noto, how is it going, man?
Yeah, it's going good. I'm honestly a little more excited for the Masters than I am for tonight's NBA slate. And we've reached a point of the season where, it's kind of hard to do any content in the morning because half the guys by the time lineups lock are going to be ruled out. So hopefully this show will help you along the way. But yeah, let's have some fun with it. Let's get the chat involved and let's break down the slate.
All right. So while you mentioned it, and I got you right here, I need to ask you, okay, tomorrow's the Masters. If I'm running one big lineup on DraftKings, one big lineup, or maybe it could be FanDuel, so forget about price. Price doesn't matter. I got one lineup. Who's the guy I need to have in that lineup?
I mean, for me, it's going to be Jordan Spieth, but he's going to be everyone else's guy as well. So under the radar guy, I'll go Abraham Ancer, a little bit cheaper.
Really? Abraham Ancer. Oh, boy. That's what you think.
Texas guy.
You think he's got what it takes to win a major here?
I mean, not win, but if you need some salary relief, I mean, Spieth's already locked in. He's got the green jacket ready to go. So for value to round out your lineups with, give me some Ancer.
All right. I prefer to roster guys who all can have a shot at winning. You're telling me the guy can't win, but I get where you're coming from. So I'm ready for that. Kirk, I know Kirk Deese over there. He makes a lot of golf lineups. He loves him some Masters. Kirk, how's it going, man? Kid Yahoo.
I'm gonna play some Masters, just because I'm just not gonna lie for this show. The show should be fun, but I have had it with NBA. I don't know if anybody's feeling the same way I am, but like this is just getting ridiculous. But unfortunately, I am still playing, so I will be doing the show with you guys and focused and ready to give out some plays. But man, it's just been brutal. No, the grind. You feeling the grind? I mean, baseball. Plus, you got like baseball day going, and it's just.
It's not even the grind of multiple sports. Basketball has just worn out its welcome this year with the way they played, with the way the injuries have come out. And even if you don't catch injuries, you're very lucky if you don't catch a 30-point blowout. I mean, I've never seen so many absolute just horrific games that are over with by halftime. So that kills you right there. There's a lot in the NBA that leaves the league. Man, hopefully Adam Silver figures some things out and how to get these guys to play more competitive next year, because this is not the answer. We're already kind of checked out of this thing in April. It's really weird, but we are going to go through our SPK is going to be on here in a little bit. So if you guys got any questions for him, fire those off in chat. I'll definitely talk to him about it. And I mean, with that said, let's talk about some injuries. I got a few here that I've identified. More dropped right before the show. I didn't even have a chance to really get into it, but Atlanta's going to be missing John Collins again. Normally, that would be a good Capella spot, but now Capella's questionable, so we got to watch out for that one. Brooklyn, KD's back, James Harden's out. So these three guys just can't get on the court at the same time. So and we're going to play a little musical chairs with superstars there, and KD's going to be in, Harden's going to be out, so we'll see how that plays out. Boston is going to be missing Kemba Walker tonight and Evan Fournier. Don't Google him, but you're going to be missing both those guys, so we've got a chance for Boston to maybe some guys emerge on Boston to get it done. Charlotte, Gordon Hayward went down. Speaking of Boston, former Celtic, Gordon Hayward out for a while now. He's down tonight against OKC. No Gordon Hayward in the lineup. And, of course, we know they're missing the big LaMelo Ball Rookie of the Year right there. So that's at OKC. Again, they've been dreadful this year. So or with these injuries lately. And, of course, SGA, Baisley, Dort, Roby all out again. So do what you want. And then the big one, just before the show, we got ruled out. Sabonis, Miles Turner. Well, take that back. Brogdon's ruled out. Turner and Sabonis are doubtful. So that means what Indiana out there. So Start with Notorious, Indiana, Sabonis, Turner, Brogdon. If they're all out, what does that do for you?
I mean, I think you got to play Karis LeVert at that point. You know, they're playing at home. Good matchup against the Wolves, one of the faster paced teams in the league, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. So he becomes a core play for me. If Goga gets the start, I think he's min salary across the industry. You got Doug McDermott, probably going to be the number 2 option offensively, which is scary for the Pacers, but good news for us if we're looking for value. And then TJ McConnell is probably the guy that I'll plant my flag on. He burned a lot of people last night. We were all expecting him to play 30 plus minutes. I think he was like 55% owned on DraftKings, and he struggled off the bench. So I hope he comes off the bench again, and I think it's a great bounce back spot for him.
All right, so we got the injuries out of the way. We know what that's all about. And like I said earlier, one of the big things is these blowouts. It's just been, I mean, teams are tanking to a whole new level this year. So we're getting a lot of blowout. But I've identified some games that may be able to stay close here. There may be something to play for here. So let's talk about these games right here until SBK gets on the line. So because I think, you know, in week 17 of NFL, what do? You target, basically, you look and see who's got something to play for, because those are the guys I kind of want to build my lineup around. Then I'll find the value somewhere else out there. So I think on slates like this, you look for the games that you can target and the players you can target, and then you build around from there, because there's going to be plenty of value. So let's start off. I want to throw this one at Kirk because these are his boys. New York at Boston. You got the 7th seed and the 8th seed. New York always plays hard. They're definitely going for the playoffs. In Boston, they just haven't looked right all year long. But, you know, here they are, man. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be a good team. There's something to play for here. What do you think about this game, Kirky?
Yeah, I think it should be competitive. That's a good thing. I think the Knicks play extremely slow and good defense, so that's kind of a downgrade. However, you do have Kemba Walker out. Now, that's not as fancy as maybe Bradley Beal being out or some of these other, all of these massive amounts of players, you know, from like the Pacers, you know, like their entire starting core is basically out. So it's a good GPP spot. I think that obviously the main plays for Boston side would be Jalen and Jason, per usual. What I've noticed this year is that when Tatum is, so what they end up doing is staggering these guys, and Tatum doesn't play so great when he doesn't have at least Kemba or Jalen with him. He needs like one of those guys to take a little bit of pressure on. Jalen ends up doing just fine typically. So Jalen is kind of my preferred guy. Both of them could definitely go off. I think it's actually a pretty good spot who's for Robert Williams, who's been out of favor because has let some people down in some spots. But this is a good block spot for him against the Knicks, who are 25th in opponent blocks per game. We know that that's one thing this guy loves to do, is just rack up blocks and steals. So those are my 3 guys. Marcus Smart is in play too, for sure, just because of the Kemba being out. If you want a cheap guy, maybe they give Romeo Langford some run tonight, extra run tonight. Maybe, you know, gets things going, although he's just working his way back and he hasn't seen big minutes, but maybe he gets an increase tonight. But I mean, it's not a sexy game because of the pace and defense.
Yeah, I caught the Robert Williams game last night where he played about 15 minutes and picked up 6 fouls. Man, he's quite handsy when he gets it. But this is not a spot where he should be a ton of fouling from him. He should be able to keep in the game here a little bit. So I like that one. Another game, Memphis and Atlanta, 2 teams that have something to play for. You have Atlanta. Shocking, man. Atlanta is a home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs team right now. They're the number 4 seed. That's crazy to think about that. I don't think it holds up because I think Miami gets there. But right now, Atlanta's fighting for home court advantage in the first round, and Memphis is fighting for a chance to make the playoffs. They're 8th out in the West. So that game has some implications there. You can play that one. Another good one, San Antonio at Denver, 2 playoff teams. I mean, I know Denver wants to, like, I don't know. You want to be in the top 4 in the West. You want to have that home court against that first round opponent, because that first round opponent is going to be a really good one out there. So I know Denver is going to fight tooth and nail to get as high up in the playoff seedings as it can. And San Antonio is on the outside looking in as far as the top 8. They're going to be they would be in like the play-in right now. So you know they want to win and get into the playoffs. They're not tanking. So that game has meaning. And then the big one of the night, like the game of the night, the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed out west. Utah travels to Phoenix. I think it's going to be a very competitive game. I'll go to Notorious on this one. These are your Jazz, man. They actually look pretty good this year, Notorious. Are you excited about the Jazz in the playoffs?
Oh, I'm excited, but my worst nightmare is that the Lakers just continue to lose, have to do the play-in tournament, get the 8th seed, and then we have to face them in the first round. I can already see it coming. So I really hope that don't happen. Hopefully they stay in the top 6. We don't have to worry about it. But I can't wait for this game tonight. I don't think it's one we really need to load up on when it comes to DFS. You know, both teams are healthy. 2 of the better defensive teams in the NBA. They're actually they got the best 2 records, the best 2-point differentials, and the best 2 records against the spread. So it's going to be a great game. I saw, you know, Chop, you got one of these teams in your picks for later. So I'm excited to hear what you got that going. But yeah, for me, I mean, both teams are healthy, so it's kind of hard to trust any of them. We're going to have a lot of value that opens up. We've already had a lot of value that opens up. So for me, it's probably going to be like 1 max on each of these teams.
Kirk, what do you think about that? Do you have any more interest in the Utah-Phoenix game as one of the only really super competitive games on the night?
I surprisingly do. So basically what's going to, with the way that these slates have been going recently, it's like, it's been, you know, this feels like the game stack is probably going to win tonight, you know, with some of the value surrounded around it. And what's going to be the most competitive game? Well, it's pretty possible that Utah Phoenix, these guys have kind of, you know, they treat it as a playoff warm-up, if you will, to, you know, kind of a test of strength for each of these teams. And it could just be the sneaky competitive game where we get the big minutes from the key players and the key rotation, and they get the key points, and then you build around with some value. So I do have interest in, and especially like a guy like Gobert, who you know, hasn't been the greatest, but you know, like the one spot to attack the Suns is at the center position. He's just a matchup nightmare for them. So you know, you could see him doing some work against Ayton and company.
Yeah, for sure, guys. I also want to mention RG Premium. Now's a good time to mention RG Premium because, you know, you got the Masters tomorrow. It's not even too late to sign up and get you all of that notorious information heading into the Masters here and build some lineups tonight, or STL cards, or Toe Tag and Tambo, multi-talented Toe Tag and Tambo from Canada. No, DFS #1 Canadian
Number
player.
1 Canadian DFS player, the number one.
Unreal. He's got his golf stuff up, so if you want to go check that out, that's pretty good. So RG Premium, guys, you get a chance to combo up all your favorite sports. You can get $10 off the first month with this code that we just dropped in chat. The only sport that's off limits is Stevie's NASCAR package. That's it. Everything else you can combo up and take what you want. And like I said, the Masters are here. That's as good of a sport as any to get some of this good information from. We got all Notorious. Let me ask you about your what goes into the Notorious rating in the golf. I mean, I've always been curious about that. Never got a chance to ask you about that.
Yeah, so apparently you haven't watched my video. I mean, I break it down each and every week. That's kind of
I just want to say for the record, I watch it, and the Noto ratings crush, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I like them. So the projections we use for Rotogrinders, they aren't my model. So I wanted to include something, you know, closer to what I use each and every week for my picks. So that's the Noto rating out of 100 based on a bunch of different factors. But yeah, I do a model video each week where I break down my favorite plays, and it was 40 minutes long. Me talking for 40 minutes straight is absolute torture for me. I don't like to talk a lot, and I talk fast, so my voice was pretty raspy after that 40 minutes.
Well, you see, Notorious, it's not that I didn't know. I just wanted you to give it to the people here who maybe don't have the RG Premium. I wanted you to explain it to them. So, yeah, there's some good content up there, guys, and we're going to kick off 4 full days of Masters. So get into that RG Premium and put down golf as one of your sports. But we're hanging on here for SBK. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but he's not here yet. So let's go ahead and start talking about a few players we like. Let's start off at the point guard position. Might as well. Let me click over to point guards and see if we can and I'll start off with Kirk on this one. Point guards, I can tell you what, I've identified one guy who I really like tonight, especially on FanDuel with his $8,200 price tag. I like Trae Young quite a bit. Competitive game. He's been heating it up lately, and I think this is going to be a good one, a good little battle of young point guards in that game. What do you think about point guards in general?
I love a good point guard, Chop.
You have any picked out for tonight?
I do. Well, so we're waiting on Russell Westbrook, obviously, because he's just a smash whenever Beal's out. Luca is a phenomenal play. Trey, you hit on it. He was balling last night, back to back, a little worrisome, but that's a good game environment that I think is one of the games that I have circled that could really pop off for a lot of fantasy production. Terry Rozier, Maladon, we got McConnell now. Again, we're going to have to go back to. That's kind of where I'm looking at this point.
All right. Before we get any further, let's go ahead and bring in the man, the myth, the legend, SBK. SBK, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday?
Doing all right, man. Definitely a little bit busier than I hoped I would be around this time, but yeah, a little slew of news there in the last 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, a little slew of news. So walk me through that late break on Indiana. How does that play out for us tonight? For those of us who haven't got a chance to see the lineup HQ yet since it got updated, how does Indiana play out tonight?
So on the Indiana side, much like last night, no Sabonis, no Malcolm Brogdon, and Miles Turner also suffered a sprained ankle in that one. He's also not expected to play. So that leaves kind of a lot of production on the Indiana side up for grabs. Karis LeVert projecting for over 40 fantasy points, about 43 on DraftKings. He's not cheap. He's 8.5K on FanDuel, 7.1K on DraftKings, but where we have him projected now, still profiling as a very solid target. TJ McConnell is a guy who we always seem to love to play when there's no Brogdon, and even especially now with Sabonis, who's another pretty impactful creator and distributor there out of the post. I think that also kind of aids McConnell's assist numbers mildly. So he's also very appealing. Doug McDermott, we have projected at 30 minutes, shade under a fantasy point per minute, which is a very strange rate to see him at. But given the lack of depth they have, that's kind of what's happening. And then Jeremy Lamb, also another guy who I think is kind of on the radar. He's kind of like toward minimum price on both sites. Not quite there, but 23 minutes the other night and 38.5 fantasy points. And then the one other kind of thing that's up in the air with this team is, obviously with Turner and Sabonis out, they have really very little front court depth. That kind of leaves it to Batadze and Jakar Sampson, who I both think will probably play a decent amount. And Batadze can be a very solid per minute producer. So at 3K on DraftKings and 3.9 on FanDuel, he's somebody that I really, really like as a cheap kind of punt play. And I guess if you could maybe look at Sampson if you're really trying to get cute there and maybe fade Goga, but I think Batadze's kind of the front court target on the Indiana side tonight.
What about the Brooklyn Kevin Durant coming back and Harden being out? What do we got Durant projected for as far as minutes? What do we think that's going to play out like?
So I think they were at I think I had Durant at 28 last night, I want to say. It's kind of like a little bit unsure as to exactly what's going to happen. With him, it's kind of obviously the first game back, he's missed a big chunk of time. So, it's obviously a little bit up in the air. And hopefully we get some sort of like kind of clarity on if they are going to limit him, like what that actually looks like. But yeah, as of right now, we have him at 28 minutes, Kyrie at 36. LaMarcus Aldridge still at 28, so like he's still kind of a little bit on the radar, but I would expect, he had that one really big game there with no Durant in his first game with the team, and then has kind of been like a middling producer since. And I would suspect that probably continues with Durant back. So yeah, I think it's like Kyrie is obviously a very appealing target in all formats, and then Durant, I'm just not sure the minutes are there. He's not like super cheap, 9.2K on DraftKings, so at 28 minutes, kind of hard to go there. But I guess he is, somewhat on the radar.
All right, I got one more for you, and then I'll let the boys ask you a question. But mine was, all right, so we knew John Collins was out. Now we get word here a little while ago, Capella's questionable. If he were to sit, how does Atlanta's front court shape up?
So I imagine that we probably have a what if up for this at this point. Capella was obviously like kind of somebody we weren't really monitoring early in the day, somebody that could be questionable. But yeah, with him out, it's possible that Okongwu starts, which would be kind of crazy. And he's another like one of these centers that pretty much minimum price that would step onto the radar in that situation. Gallo also questionable. So there's a kind of still a lot up in the air with this Atlanta side. We could see Bogdanovich take on even more responsibility than he's taken on. So it does look like, by the way, we just had a push alert that Durant will have a minutes limit, but it doesn't look like it's going to be like super strict. So kind of maybe that 28 minutes really isn't a bad projection. But back to the Atlanta side, we could see more of like Solomon Hill. It's tough to say. Like at this point, obviously Trey is projecting very well. Bogdanovich is projecting pretty well, and he'll project even better if there's no Gallo or no Capella. But yeah, they would definitely be lacking in size. Nate Knight would probably step under the radar. But yeah, I would imagine Okongwu probably starts in that situation. Probably matches up somewhat well with Valanciunas. But yeah, so still a lot to be determined on the Atlanta side. And I think from a late swap perspective, they're probably the most intriguing team that starts after lock.
And just out of curiosity, if you get a guy like Capella scratches, and then we get a lesser defensive player in there, are you guys bumping up Jonas? Like the opposite player that's going to get the benefit from? Do you bump up a Jonas in that situation? Jonas, whatever his name is.
So what we would probably do in that situation is, at least how I think I would handle it, is probably bump down the Atlanta projected rebounds, which would probably lead to like a very small uptick for the bigs on the Memphis side, but it wouldn't really be much. I don't know that it would move the needle a whole lot, but I think from like just kind of analyzing it on your own, like I think Capella is a better defender than whoever else they'd have out there. I don't think Okongwu is not a bad defender. That's kind of like what he was kind of good at, as like a young player. This is one thing he can do is kind of defend. So I'm not sure it'd be a stark downgrade, but Capella is pretty solid, a very good rebounder. So yeah, I mean, it would change a little bit for Valanciunas, maybe make him slightly more appealing, but not a whole lot.
Noto, you got anything?
Yeah, back to the Nets situation. I was looking at Court IQ earlier today, and Kyrie Irving just smashes with Harden and Durant off the floor. So can we expect Nash to stagger those 2 minutes? Can we expect Kyrie to be on the floor, by himself for 20 minutes or so?
That's probably somewhat realistic. I'd probably set the expectation a little lower than that, maybe like 15 minutes solo, just given that Durant, we only projected for 28 minutes. So I can see like half of Durant's court time being spent with just him on there. And, I'd imagine they probably try to stagger them a little bit, but they do kind of have some playmaking in the front court with Aldridge and Blake Griffin. So I'm not sure how much they really need to worry about that tonight, but it is an interesting thought. And yeah, I mean, I'm still all over Kyrie really, regardless kind of what that Durant minutes limit was going to look like. But yeah, we'll probably see some Kyrie without Durant, maybe half of Durant's court time, something in that range, but hard to say, obviously.
Kirky, is it Jonas or is it Jonas?
It's Jonas.
Oh dang, I blew that one. All right, what you got? You got anything for us, BK?
I don't. I guess the only situation I'm kind of really eyeing, I guess, is Brandon Ingram. You got a lean there at all?
No, not one that I feel good about. At least I think, gun to my head, I'd probably guess he sits again. But yeah, I'd say it's probably very close to 50-50. I do think we have a what if up for that. We do actually. So you can kind of see where we would likely be if Ingram is out. But yeah, that's a very tough one. I'm kind of with you. It's hard.
Yeah, I just want to give credit to the guy who's, I don't know who it is, but whoever's behind the what if projections, use them every day. Huge help. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's Gamino, Alan Lem, Mr. Tuttle, we have Varun Thakur on there now. So yeah, that's the team that does those is amazing. So yeah, they definitely deserve a shout out.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you coming by, man. I know you're busy, so we'll let you get back to work, and we'll talk to you next time, Steven.
All right, boys. Good luck tonight.
Later on. All right, guys. Let's keep on breaking down this slate. Let's see. We'll go back to point guards and let Notorious tell me who he likes at the point guard position.
Yeah, so talk to McConnell a little bit. I think he's going to have a big game against the Wolves. I like the Trae Young call, like you guys mentioned. Just his numbers with John Collins off the floor. He averages 1.45 fantasy points per minute, usage rate in the high 30s. So he sees a massive boost without Collins. Then you throw in Capella questionable, Gallinari questionable. I think he's in a really good spot. Talked about Kyrie a little bit. I like his upside when Durant's not going to be on the floor. And then Terry Rozier is interesting too. We talked about the Hornets being shorthanded. Good matchup against the Thunder. They like to push the pace. They're not very good defensively. He's going to see a ton of minutes, ton of usage without Hayward and Ball in there.
Yeah, fair enough. And guys, just to remind you, we're gonna need some bets later on from you guys. So if you come across anything during the show, fire it off in chat. I'll keep track of it. Kurt, I don't want to put you on the spot, but later on we're gonna ask you for some bets too, and maybe we may just track yours too, because the chat. I'm not giving away no spoilers here, but the chat's not doing so good on their own. So maybe they need a little Kirky help. And I see our boy Jared Barton in there. I don't know if he's
a personal subscriber to the Kirk Palm package, betting package. He's a happy customer after last night. We took down again the White Sox, easy cash winner. We're gonna bring it back again with more baseball, but I guess today we're talking NBA, so I'll have a winner for you later.
All right, well, we'll get that from you later, but lots of good stuff going on. Now let's get to some shooting guards here. I want to start this one off with Notorious and let him get his fair. Now, one guy who's popped up on the radar was Karis LeVert, but even before that, there's some other value plays out there. Who are you eyeballing at shooting guard?
Yeah, so we don't have a pick from the chat yet, but Morningwood Blues, he's got a stock buy for us to buy some intel. No. So we got some one pick in there at least. Lock that in, Stone Cold lock of the century. Back to shooting guard, yeah, Karis LeVert, he's going to be the guy that I spend up on tonight. I know he's a little expensive. I actually prefer that. If he was like 6K, he'd be 80% owned, something crazy like that. So do like Karis LeVert. You could also go to Jeremy Lamb in that same game. SPK talked about, his per minute efficiency is pretty good. He's obviously going to see an uptick in minutes. On FanDuel, you got to like Svi. I mean, he's only 3,800 at home against Charlotte. I'm not sure what happened with that price point. So those are probably going to be, the most obvious plays. And then on DraftKings, I like Jaylen Brown quite a bit. Like Kirk mentioned, when we were talking about the Celtics earlier, he's kind of the guy that seems to take over when the Celtics are shorthanded. It's a tough matchup against the Knicks. That's going to help keep ownership down. So he's a guy that I like to get to a little bit, hopefully lower ownership than LeVert.
Yeah, we're going to get Kirky's shooting guard picks. I do want to point out that you're going to need to pull some good bets. Some good bets for our boy Barton, Kirky, because he did not subscribe to Chop Factors for March Madness, and he is in a major hole now. And so I've heard he's having trouble with his payments, but we'll see how that plays out. Kirk, who you got as shooting guard, man?
Well, Noto nailed it with LeVert. Obviously, I mean the guy just crushes with. We've seen him in this situation with the Nets before when he was playing with a bunch of low usage players, and he always never disappointed. And now he's come out strong without Brogdon and Sabonis on the floor. His rates are all great. Usage a little lower than what they used to be in Brooklyn at 24.1% with those guys off the floor, but he's averaged 1.13 DraftKings point per minute. So I expect an increase there too without Turner. He's the lock. I think Devontae Graham is a guy that can light it up and go off. With Gordon Hayward out. Let's see. I'm going to try to find
Give me who's the Oklahoma City with all these guys out for Oklahoma City? Who's that Oklahoma shooting guard you're targeting? I know you said his name earlier, last show. Sevi what? What is Sevi what?
No, you're supposed to say it.
No. Yeah, I need you to say it, man. I'm priming you for it. I'm setting you up here.
Mikhailuk.
Is he in play? He's in play, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course he's in play. I mean, everyone knows that, Chop. But yeah. So let's get back on track here. Marcus Smart is a good play tonight. He's going to fall a little bit out of favor as the day keeps moving and all this. He was going to be chalk once it started, but now he's kind of going lower down the list. So he's someone to look to. As far as Pokashevsky. That's the small forward position, Chop, but he's the guy that's kind of taken over this OKC offense. So he'll be a play at the small forward position that I really like. But Kyrie, I mean, those are maybe Bogdanovich, if things break right, especially, I mean, the minutes have been there. If things break right in this Atlanta Hawks situation, Kevin Herter, there's no shortage of options all around.
Yeah, I don't think I heard his name, but of course I like Karis LeVert. I heard that one, but the guy I didn't hear that I really like tonight. I'm going to that Utah game and Donovan Mitchell. I think it's a big game. I think we're going to see the big players step up for Utah. I wrote in my expert survey. I wouldn't be shocked if we see like a massive game out of both Mitchell and Gobert. They both set up pretty. And Chris Paul defense is good, but boy, Mitchell's kind of on a different level. So maybe he could take advantage of it. I like Mitchell with a pretty decent price tag. So small forwards, let's talk about some of those. We got about 20 minutes or so left, guys. So any questions you want, fire them up. I'm going to get to them in just a minute. We got plenty of time at the end to answer all the questions and get all the bets out there. So small forward looks, you guys mentioned some of the guys on the dual position sites already. And other than that, it's kind of bone dry here. Jaylen Brown against the Knicks, I think, is a solid opportunity here with some guys out. So Jaylen Brown's fine. And other than that, it's kind of a lost position here. Kevin Durant, I don't know. I guess both of you guys can talk about it, but can we play Durant if we think he's going to be limited to under 30 minutes? It's a decent price tag, but it's certainly not cheap. But I'll start off with Kirk. Talk to me about some small forwards and hit on Durant. I mean, not literally hit on Durant, but talk about him fantasy wise.
He's a DM guy, Durant. Anyways, well, depending on the site, so we do have some guys. So obviously, the guy I really like is Jaylen Brown. I already said that. He kind of as long as if this game's going to be competitive, and it should be, and it's the New York Boston rivalry. Here, I know Barton's going to be watching that one. He's all excited about that. He bet on the Knicks, told him not to, but he did. Jaylen Brown is my guy in that game. Jeremy Lamb broke the slate last night. He's still ridiculously cheap. Everybody's out again. Doug McDermott, you can play. McDermott would be the minutes play. Lamb is the upside guy. Michael Porter Jr. Jamal Murray, I have a feeling is probably going to be out again. I think he's questionable still, but so he's someone that could pick up the slack on offense. Plus Monty Morris is still, kind of coming back from injury here. So, could be not a lot of guard scoring for the Nuggets, which could lead to more points from like Michael Porter Jr. Maybe Will Barton gets off. Terrence Ross. I mean, everybody's back in Orlando. Nobody's going to want to play Terrence Ross now because everyone wants Terrence Ross when everyone's out. But his minutes should be as stable as anybody, and he's a scorer. It's his team now. He's the captain now. It's a matchup with Washington. This game should be juicy. So yeah, that's where I'm looking at this point. Maybe Anthony Edwards, but I don't know. I'm not really excited to play Edwards because of D'Angelo Russell being back, but I still think that he's going to be getting his. So Edwards is a GPP fringe guy for me.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there. Notorious, do you have anybody in addition to that that you want to add in there?
You covered most of them. I do like Edwards as sort of a bring it back to our Pacer stacks. We're gonna have a lot of exposure to them tonight. And then that same game, if you like guys that are going to play a bunch of minutes and not get you any fantasy points, you got Justin Holiday sitting right there at 4.1K on FanDuel. He played 15 minutes last night in the first half, got one rebound right before halftime. So that was pretty bad. Like the Jaylen Brown call, especially on FanDuel, like Bogdanovich, willing to pay a little bit of a premium for him over on FanDuel. DraftKings, Miles Bridges, I think he's one of the better point per dollar options. Only 5K over there. I think he's pretty cheap on Yahoo as well for Kirky. And then, Lamb, McDermott, both small forward eligible on DraftKings. So it's definitely a better position on DK than it is on FanDuel.
So it looks like Brandon Ingram, speaking of small forwards, Brandon Ingram ruled out, as is Kira Lewis Jr., but Brandon Ingram being the big one there. Go to Noto. What does that do for you knowing Brandon Ingram is out?
So James Johnson's going to start. He's been crushing the last few games. I think he's averaged like 38 fantasy points over his last 5. And then Zion sees a big boost with Ingram off the floor. And Lonzo Ball quietly playing very well since coming back from injury. I think he's averaged over 50 fantasy points. So definitely more concentrated offense there in New Orleans and opens up even more value, which we don't need.
Yeah, it's a weird game. New Orleans just hasn't been that great, or not. They haven't been that good this year. Period. I think they're under 500, and they're not even in the playoffs. They might be like in those write-in games and all that other stuff. But uh, so it's a little weird. They're not good, and they're playing Brooklyn on the road, 9-point spread. But I don't think they get blown out. So maybe we
Back
got
to
some.
back to back scares me a little bit
Yeah,
with Zion just coming back from injury last night, and then playing big minutes, and then having to play again tonight. I don't know what to expect. Like the way this team has just been, it's like complete coin flip whether they even show up. You know.
yeah. They've just been very very disappointing this year. It's crazy, man. So we'll see how that plays out. Let's go to some power forwards now. About 15 minutes or so left, guys. Get through some power forwards here. Yeah, there's not a lot here. This is very interesting. We're just talking about one. Zion is now he takes a little bit of a bump now. It's a pretty good matchup for him. And but again, we like Kirk said, we got the back-to-back to deal with. We got the guy from Oklahoma City that Kirk mentioned earlier, and I'm going to let him talk about him some more. So Kirk, go for these power forwards, man.
All right, I'll start it with Pokashevsky. Like I said,
There
I mean,
you go. You do that so smooth, man.
he's a scorer. I mean, he's a scorer. This team needs scoring. This is a juicy game. Charlotte, OKC, pretty much from every angle, should have fantasy production all over it. So you're going to want the scores in this game, and like the Kendrick Williams, Theo Maledon, these guys aren't doing it. Look for any of the other guys, but OKC 30th in opponent steals per game, so 26th. The Hornets are 26th in opponent steals per game, so we can expect a lot of sloppy play, a lot of steals in this game, which sets up for guys like Miles Bridges that Noto likes. And he did nail it. He's extremely cheap on Yahoo. He's kind of a must play over there. At least the last I checked. I haven't checked lately. Who else? What site you want me to do?
Whatever you feel like you got, man. Whatever, just you throw it all out there. We're not setting any boundaries today.
All right. Well, on DraftKings, I mean, Kyle Anderson is a guy who's just been he's been sneaky guy that I've been playing. That other guys, no one likes to play this guy. But the guy's just been crushing. He's especially without Brandon Clark, his numbers are really strong on the floor. So he's a guy definitely to put in cash or GPP for me. He's fine. Tatum, obviously, I prefer Jalen, but Tatum, it wouldn't shock me at all if Tatum goes off tonight in this game. PJ Washington, Chuma Okiki. I mean, and then Kristaps is back. Probably. They sounded like he was going to play. He's questionable right now. Have you got? I think he's questionable. Do we have anything latest on him?
I haven't seen any definitive thing on Porzingis yet. So
based on coach speak, it sounded like he was going to be back tonight, but you never know.
Yeah, but also though, you got a game against Houston, so we know Houston's rolling over. Maybe they may not even feel like they need to fire up Porzingis tonight.
And they play Milwaukee tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, so they may just be very very cautious with him, and even if he does play, you may see some limitations for him. So be aware of that. Notorious, what do you got at power forward?
Yeah, they do play Milwaukee tomorrow, so I definitely don't think we need Porzingis here. We talked about Zion. If that game's going to stay close, you got to think he's going to have a big game. His injury was just a thumb injury, so I'm not too worried about his conditioning or anything like that. With Ingram off the floor, per 36 minutes, he's averaging 51 fantasy points, usage rate over 30%. So I do like Zion quite a bit. We talked about the value of McDermott, the value with Miles Bridges. I think they're both solid options. I like the Chuma Okiki call. He's been playing really well. And for a while, the Magic, after the trade with Vucevic, they've just been playing a bunch of guys in the minutes in the mid-20s, but that's no longer their case. They're giving Carter a bunch of minutes. They're giving Okiki a bunch of minutes. So he's one of my favorite point per dollar options at power forward. And the guy won't be playing, PJ Washington. He just, for whatever reason, he's just been struggling. He's at under 25 fantasy points in 5 or 6 straight games. It's going to be pretty popular, especially on FanDuel. So I think he's one of the guys that I'll get away from.
All right, let's talk about some centers before we get to some QQs and some bets and all that other good stuff. So Yeah, there's all kinds of centers tonight. You got your studs like Jokic, who should be in a competitive game, fairly competitive game, more than we could say for other teams. Carl Anthony Towns is on the radar. You go to the middle class there with the Time Lord. Should get some decent run tonight. Hopefully, he doesn't get in foul trouble. A guy who's been crushing since not since the trade, but at least the last 3 games. Wendell Carter Jr. He's getting minutes now. Yeah, they're letting this kid spread his wings, and he's been 40-plus fantasy points on both sides for 3 straight games. So you got that going for you. And sneaky under the radar, yes, Houston is tanking, and one of the ways they're tanking is, I think, maybe playing bad real-life players. That's Kelly Olynyk. I don't know if Kelly Olynyk's bad in real life. I don't know. I'll take that back. Maybe he's good, but he's in the cheaper range. He's getting run with Houston. He's doing really well. So I'll go to Notorious first. Do any of those guys catch your eye, and who do you have your eye on?
Yeah, I do like Wendell Carter quite a bit. Like you mentioned, he's been crushing. I think you've said 40-plus in a few straight games. We only have him projected for 28 minutes, which I'm a little surprised by. He's been playing pretty high in the 30s. So definitely double check that before line of stock. See if there's any reason why we have him a little bit lower tonight. But Goga, I mean, we have him projected for over 30 fantasy points. He's 3K on DraftKings. He's 3.9K on FanDuel. It's going to be very popular, but rightly so. We've talked about a lot of the Pacers. No Sabonis, no Turner, so they don't really have anybody else to turn to. I think he's interesting. Jonas Valanciunas, Chop, I think he's interesting against the Hawks, especially if Capella ends up being out. We know Capella, one of the better rebounders. So is Valanciunas. And if you take Capella off the floor, you got to think his per minute production is going to be up there. One guy that I think nobody's going to play, Moses Brown. I mean, he was like the guy everyone wanted to play for a while there. And then the Thunder have been losing by 30 points in 3 straight games, I think, something crazy like that. So none of their starters have been playing big minutes. I think this is a spot where it's a closer spread. It at least should be competitive. They're at home. I think they are only 5.5-point underdogs at the moment. So perhaps this is a spot where Moses Brown gets going again. If he tops 30 minutes, we know what he can do.
Yeah. Kid Yahoo, talk to me about some centers you got your eyeballs on tonight.
I mean, Goga, I think we have to play this guy for min price everywhere. Just the point per minute production is just very strong, and they have absolutely no bigs. If he gets in foul trouble, it could obviously be a problem, especially against Cat. So it's a realistic outcome. But I think you gotta plug him in. You nailed it with Wendell Carter Jr. Guy's been balling, playing big minutes, spreading his wings, like you said. I got nothing bad to say. I think he's pretty much a lock. And the Wizards are now, dead last in DVP versus the center position. It's the centers that kind of struggle are kind of the older, slower centers that don't get up the court fast enough or back up the court. So Wendell, I don't have that concern at all with Wendell Carter Jr. The only concern would be foul trouble, maybe from Westbrook attacking the rim, but you can't predict that stuff. Jokic, obviously, Gobert talked about earlier in the show. I think, that this is a good spot for Gobert. I think he could really take advantage of Ayton and company over there. So, and has a huge rebounding advantage. So I could see him definitely getting offensive putbacks in this game and whatnot. And they'd be smart to utilize him more in the offensive end in this one. And it's should be competitive. That's pretty much it. I love Valanciunas, like you said, but I think we've pretty much nailed everyone that I'm considering.
All right, guys, we've come to that part of the show where we're going to fire up some bets right now and walk you through this here. Last week, not a bad week. I was the Chop Man was 2-0-1. We got a push in there on the Brooklyn game, hit 12 points at the very end. So that's a push. 2-0 last week. Notorious was 2-1. Chat, you were 1-2. Come on, man. We're gonna have to get you some help here. That leaves Beer in first place.
Wait a minute. I know I hit mine last week. I do know I hit
1-0.
Okay.
Kirk, 1-0.
He was 1-0, man. But it's not official unless you log it on the sheet, Kirk. Where there's a sheet. There's a sheet for the show, man. Golly, Kirk. Can't do everything.
I don't know these rules.
All right. Well, then if Kirk was 1-0, he's sitting in first place with a 1,000% winning percent. Beer's in second place there at 21-12. Beer's on hiatus. He'll be back next week to fire off some more picks. I'm sitting at 19-16. Notorious 18-18, and the chat is bringing up the rear 17-19. I want to go to Kirk. You have any bets? Any best bet? Do you have any reputation bets tonight?
the reputation bets are coming off a very strong night last night, but and the Martingale plays of the day. But those are more baseball related. So since this is an NBA show, I got to do NBA. I am going to say that the Charlotte Hornets minus the 5.5 points get it done against this just young, terrible OKC team. So I'll lay the 5.5 points, and that'll be my play of the day.
That's nice because there was a couple people in chat that wanted Charlotte. So we're going to definitely put Charlotte down as a chat play, even though one of the guys said Charlotte money line. I mean, we can't give you a money line at -5 on the show, but we'll give you Charlotte at -5 tonight. So you guys got Charlotte. Also, what I saw from the chat earlier was the New York Knicks +3. Yeah, the New York Knicks. They wanted the Knicks +3. They wanted Brooklyn -9. So we're going to give them those 3 bets. Charlotte -5, Brooklyn -9, Knicks +3. Noto, what you got today?
Well, I thought the line on the Pacers game looked pretty good considering the fact that 3 of their guys were questionable. I thought maybe 1 or 2 of them could suit up, and that kind of backfired on me. So I have Indiana -2. You can get them at +1 right now. I still think they have a good chance. They are at least fighting for playoff positioning. So they're at home. I got a bad number, but that's all right. I got Atlanta -2.5. I think that's a pretty good bet. And then the Pelicans and Nets over 233. I'm hoping that game stays competitive because that one could get ugly with the Pelicans being shorthanded. And Kirk, you have a chance to lock this thing up. If you win this week, assuming Beer's back, I mean, batting 100%, that's pretty good.
Well, yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna throw one more play in there.
There we go.
He's pushing it.
I'm going to say the Boston Celtics take care of business. I'm going to go anti the chat.
Oh.
Fade the chat play of the day. Celtics
That's
-3 points. Robert Williams has a massive game. Jason Tatum has a decent game. Jaylen Brown goes off.
Wow. So Clint Capella is out, guys. Danilo Gallinari is out, and Clint Capella is out. So we got some more value opened up there for that Atlanta team. Look out for those projections to get updated. I'm going to give you my bets real quick. I took the Jazz -1.5. I think they're the better team here. I took the Hawks -2.5. I think that's a good playoff game, and I think that's pretty, I like the 2.5. Unfortunately, I took the Knicks +3, but I did this at like noon. I should have waited because I didn't know Kirky was going to come at me like that and give me the Boston lock like that. But I took the Knicks plus the points. I can see this thing coming down to the very end. I think it's going to be a tight game, so I went that route. Let's get a few questions in before we got to get out of here in a couple minutes. So I'll start this one off with Noto on DraftKings. What team do you want to get the most value from right now? Oh man, that's like a couple of different teams, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Pacers seem obvious, but now we got Atlanta too. I don't even know half the guys that are going to be playing in their front court tonight because they're missing their top 3 guys in Gallinari, Capella, and Collins. So going to be some value opening up there. But for me, it's probably going to be Indiana.
All right. Ask Kirk whether the risk of fading McConnell to potentially play Herder without Gallo and Clint and a ceiling. Well, okay.
I like this question.
This is okay. What you got, Kirk? Did you get that one?
Yeah, I got it. So my Kirk Palm model says that you can fade TJ McConnell tonight. He's a great play, but Herder would make a lot of sense. You don't even need. There's plenty of high upside guards that you can fit in that are a little bit more expensive than McConnell that may offer some higher upside, such as like Terry Rozier, such as Kyrie, such as Trae Young. So I wouldn't be worried about fading him. I think the guy you got to put in, especially on Yahoo, is Goga because you need that block and steal upside, and he's just so cheap, and they have no other bigs. And then Wendell Carter is a lock too because he's so cheap.
Notorious utility for DraftKings. Who you spinning up on, Jokic, Towns, or Luka?
Ooh, give me Towns because you can play him with Goga. I know targeting centers against each other doesn't really correlate all that well historically, but I like both of them quite a bit. Yeah,
I'll answer this one for you here. It says, do you need to bring it back with anybody from your Indiana stack? The answer is no, not with that value. If you're game stacking in hopes of getting an overtime or a shootout, yeah, you'd want to bring it back, but you're not stacking it because of that. You're stacking Indiana because of the value. So no, you don't need to bring it back with anybody. Super draft, Aaron Gordon playable with no Millsap. Absolutely, Aaron Gordon is playable. So that's going to wrap it up, guys. We're at 20 past the hour. We need to make room for a crunch time. I don't even know if there is a crunch time today, but we're going to get out of here and let him do it. So as always, we appreciate Noto being on here every week. Kirk filling in for Beer. I'm sure he'll be back at some point this year. Both Kirk will have to do another show because I'm sure Beer's not finished with his vacations. You know them mailmen, man. They like to take their vacations quite a bit. But guys, we appreciate you tuning in. Good luck in all those GPPs. For Noto, for Kirk, I'm Head Chopper, and our producer Devin, and we're out of here.